Ask the clerk to introduce the item, after which council will be given an opportunity to ask questions of staff. I'll then ask the applicant to present their application, following which I'll invite public input. And if you would like to address council, please come forward and give your name and address to identify yourself. And we ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes. After everyone has had an opportunity to speak, I will then ask the applicant to return if there are any unanswered questions, and then the matter will be turned over to council for a decision. So with that, let's introduce the first item, Madam Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first item is 4247, 4253, 4255 Dieppe Road. This is a rezoning and development permit application. The supplemental report of the Director of Planning is recommending that council amend the zoning bylaw to include a new site-specific comprehensive development Dieppe zone, and to approve the rezoning to the RS4, to the new comprehensive development zone, and to RS6, to also approve the development permit. Final reading of the bylaws would be withheld pending securing a number of items that would be necessary to secure this rezoning should it be approved and through public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for staff? Assuming Councilor Murdoch doesn't have any questions either, and we'll move forward. And I'll ask the applicant to come forward, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ian Fatt. I reside at 6131 Hunt Road. I'm going to call this round 2, just so we can differentiate between round 1 and round 2. There were 8 different areas that were brought forward in round 1 that we would like to address. They are community amenities, solar ready, sustainability, pedestrian connection to Kincaid, accessible design, density, outside operational noise, and truck traffic. Between the presentation from our architects and myself, we will cover all of them off. We will also be expanding on points in our first presentation that we felt were weak or that we missed on. Community amenities. We'll start with a good one. We got a little sidetracked in round 1 on the amenity package, but hopefully with the changes we've made, we're covering off all the things that were missed. We've decided to change our amenity package contribution, which was $125,500 in round 1, to $158,000. Our affordable housing portion of this contribution goes up by $20,000 to $1,250 per unit. Our affordable housing portion total will now be $52,500. We've also instituted a Gavel Creek amenity. The fund is to be started to raise awareness and possible start enhancement of the creek. This contribution will be $12,500. Hopefully this will kickstart a Gavel Creek stewardship group that can draw on these funds as needed. The next one is the sustainability part of our project that we were asked to comment on. We currently operate in a very old facility. I believe the first part was built in the 1930s somewhere. Cost savings will be pretty easy to achieve. Some of the areas in which we're going to get major savings would be electricity. The electricity savings will come from mostly the refrigeration. There will be the installation of insulated panels in our cooler rooms. In some cases, these cooler rooms right now have no insulation. We will be replacing all of our old refrigeration compressors, some of which were used when we installed them 20 years ago. We will also be switching to more environmentally friendly gases and energy efficient motors. The above changes alone should result in a saving to us in the environment of $40,000 per year. Water savings will come from improved ways of washing and rinsing product. This means new equipment that uses less water while still maintaining a high food-safe level of sanitation. These should result in savings of approximately $12,000 a year. We currently reuse the excess heat when available from refrigeration for heating of the building and domestic hot water. This program will be expanded as more heat should now be available for reuse in the shoulder seasons. No value has been placed on these savings, but we are hoping these will be considerable. At the beginning of this project, we had this brainwave that the heat from the commercial part, the refrigeration, could be economically used in the residential component of this development. We commissioned a study with Stantec Engineering to look into the feasibility of doing this. Unfortunately, the study showed that it was not economically feasible. A copy of this report is in the package that you received from planning. The next issue I would like to address is operational noise. This is an area where we'll be able to drastically improve. All outside operations, which now include forklift operation for recycling, garbage, animal waste, and feeding of the produce in feed conveyors, will now be contained indoors. On top of this, our current facility has an open loading dock. The proposed loading dock will be enclosed within the building, and where the back of the trucks meet the building, there will be sound containment. The loading of these trucks will be contained within the U part of the building, so the building is not up, but the front of the building is designed in a U shape to keep the sound inside. None of our future operations will happen outside the plant. So what you should only see on the outside of the plant is people going to and from work, and everything else should be inside the building. As a side issue, these moves are also designed to improve the food safety side of our operations. Another concern was truck traffic. We ban all of our own trucks from using Dieppe, Con, Lilly, Cameo, and Rogers. The only access our trucks are allowed to use is Douglas Street. Our trucks are also instructed not to go any faster than 40 kilometers an hour on Douglas, which is 10 kilometers below the posted speed. We feel, due to the lack of complaints and our continuing enforcement / nagging, we have a pretty good compliance on these issues. As far as third-party truck use of Con and Dieppe goes, we have to this point not directed these trucks not to use these roads. This has not been done as our current facility does not lend itself to controlling this traffic. With approval of this application, we will be controlling the issue of truck traffic on Dieppe and Con. Our new entrance is designed to make it difficult for semis to back off of Douglas into the facility, thus forcing them to use Douglas. And that's for the semi-trucks. Smaller trucks and tandem delivery trucks, we still have to control. We feel we should be able to control this by directing our suppliers to use the Douglas Street. And in the past, we've had a system where trucks that don't follow what is the guidelines, it always takes us a little bit longer to unload their trucks, and it tends to force the drivers to use the correct route. This is not 100% fixed. We feel we can get pretty close to 100%. I would also like to make a comment on 2 letters received by Mayor and Council since our May 11th round 1. You received a letter from Stan Brigadier dated May the 14th. Stan states in Part A that, quote, "However, I would urge instead that the sidewalk be on Douglas right to the end of this dead-end street." And I believe what he was talking about then is he wanted the sidewalk to go up Dieppe Road to the end of the street. Our stand on this, that there is a current safety issue on Con. This will not change with our development. It would probably get worse and not improve. We feel that our approach proposal with the sidewalk up Con addresses this safety issue. The foot traffic which now and in the future that use the dead end on Dieppe Road does not have to deal with a lot of traffic. Stan states in Part B that in general that there are problems with Douglas traffic. Although we are not in 100% agreement on Stan's solutions to the problem, we do agree that this area could be easily improved with some of his solutions, i.e. no parking on Douglas Street. Stan states in Part C, early morning truck startup creates considerable noise for neighbors. It should be considered to impose and not before 7 a.m. startup. Our customers here and Up Island demand early morning delivery. We have to compete with mainland companies which barge produce over and can get it to the customer early to meet their demands. We find the current noise bylaw too restricting as it is. We can live within it, but to make it more restrictive would not be good. Saanich also got an email from a Trevor Berry. Part of his thing under economics, he states, I question the likelihood that this food production facility will support local agriculture. I would just like to draw your attention to the letters that are in your package from local growers. They all state the importance of this facility to the local farming community, and as well as our personal bias towards local agriculture will benefit agriculture now and hopefully more so in the future. To answer some of the rest of your concerns, and to add on to it, I'd like to ask our landscape architect to carry on. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you. My name is Scott Murdoch, a landscape architect with Murdoch Degrees from Victoria. And in the previous presentation, we sort of started off big. We talked about the Colquitt's River. We talked about how this drainage system works in the neighborhood and how basically all the water from our site ends up going into a drain that drains into Gabo just before it goes under the highway. We still have that information, but we wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the details of the site and of the design and sort of how the design evolved so that you really understood what it was we were doing. And to look at, you know, this site also as what amenities are on site as opposed to other areas. So the things we wanted to talk about a little bit more were some of the existing trees and what's gone, how they've been preserved and what we've done to do that, some of the landscape types, the pedestrian circulation system, just trees and plants and landscape in general, buffers, how we've dealt with you know, buildings and you know, with density, how do we give people a really nice place to live in their patios, how do we work with the neighbors to provide privacy for them and still build and not obstruct things. And then also things like the other site amenities like the playground and the strata of the vegetable garden, community garden. So existing trees, there's 3 existing Gary Oaks that you can see on the plan. They're circled in red, 1, 2, and 3. We've worked with local arborist Jeremy Jai, who's actually done some testing around some of these trees to find out where their roots actually are. We've worked with the municipal arborist on site and the architect and civil engineer. So we've actually, for example, moved this building here a bit to account for the canopy of the tree. Originally, this building was a little closer and we had a trail that went up. It's a unique tree where the canopy actually comes right to the ground, so working with everybody, we decided to move the trail and have it actually connect right to the sidewalk on Dieppe. This tree down here, which is the largest one that's right underneath the hydro right-of-way, we had BC Hydro out to assess it to make sure that it was, it's not going to grow into their hydro lines. There's lots of safe clearance there. But there's a lot of grade change coming down the slope here, so we have to work with the grade, work with the arborist to figure out how we can get the driveway parking there. And even things like changing the paving here from regular pavement to permeable pavement. Trees, when we can pave over them, but we have to provide oxygen and water to them. So when we use permeable paving products, that actually allows air to get down and keep the roots alive, but also water as well. In addition to just retaining those trees, I think that's a lot. We're proposing to plant 288 new trees. They are located around the periphery of the site, along this property line. This property right now is basically a hedgerow of blackberry. It's pretty nasty, and we're looking at removing the blackberry and adding new trees. We're restricted by the height that we can, that our trees can grow underneath this hydro right-of-way. So anywhere on this side over here, we have to keep our trees under 30 feet in height. So we've selected various cultivars, smaller native trees like cascara, the black hawthorn, some of the cultivars of western red cedar that don't grow as big. We want to create habitat and still work with the hydro. We don't want them topping our trees. So over 50% of the trees are native, including big leaf maple, Douglas hawthorn, Douglas fir, Gary oaks, and western red cedar. The trees are functioning to create to screen views within the site and also buffer views from adjacent properties. So examples of that are in this section, in this area right here, we've got the back of the wall of the new processing plant, but it's got a screen buffer, and I'll show a section of that later, so that these people are actually going to be looking at a green, evergreen buffer. That goes with all areas adjacent to this property. Here, there's a grading issue where we're down lower here and have to grade up. So we're terracing the landscape, keeping it high adjacent to the property and planting trees there as well, so that we really create a nice buffer for that resident at this property right here. In terms of landscape, we use it to enhance the experience of both residents and passers, people passing by the site, either on bicycles or cars. So for example, on the front facade of the building, we've got some green roof area, the patio areas that will have plants that can drape over the edge, that can kind of soften those building edges. And along the sides of the building, we've developed a green screen, so using a cabling system to give it a structure, and we can grow vines up it. And we've got vines that will grow anywhere to up to 100 feet. The building's not near that tall, so within 4 to 5 years we'll have significant coverage on the sides of the building to soften that building and make it sort of fit into that residential neighborhood. Rain gardens. We, from the get-go, wanted this site to work and function with Gabriel Creek, and anytime we're looking at a site, we want to improve it. Originally, the site was about 20% impervious, but all that impervious area and all those gravel areas fed water directly into Gabriel Creek. So all the pollutant flow from the roofs, from the roads, everything would have gone there, even off of Douglas and Yelp. What we're proposing is to slow that water down. Everything I heard earlier, right on. We're trying to work with those natural systems, take the water, put it through rain gardens, through the soil, before we actually discharge it to Gabriel Creek. And these create really interesting landscapes. They're very diverse. Creates another level of habitat diversity for birds, red-winged blackbirds, for example, love these kinds of habitats. And it also creates real interest on walkways. So walking up through the middle of the development, you're going to pass a couple of rain gardens on the way to the community garden. And on the road edges here, this is going to be much like the landscape on Tattersall Road, for example, or even some of the new rain gardens on Cook Street that we developed. So taking that, instead of, we're not just dealing with the water on our site, we're dealing and treating some of the runoff from Saanach's roadways as well. In terms of additional site amenities, I mean, I see these all as amenity. It's just that they're not a playground, they're not a this, they're not a that. It's sort of like an ecological amenity. And I think that this site has, we've tried to incorporate that at every turn that we can. There's a playground here, so people can come down, walk down to the playground from this development, or come in off of the street. It's flanked by a rain garden, and there's going to be some natural play elements there as well, so it has a swing. There's a little slide that you would climb up a hill to actually get to instead of stairs. So trying to use some of the grading and site information to make play spaces. Again, there's the community garden at the top of the site, looking at local food production for local community members within the development, and a place for people just to get out and walk and meet. It's a bit of a destination in the site. In terms of the pedestrian circulation system, there are about 150 meters of trail throughout the development, so coming up through the development to the community garden, back out both ways to the streets, which are also have sidewalks, and getting access down to the playground here. We're also, and this was something that was talked about the last one, was why we didn't make a connection, a pedestrian connection to Kincaid. And we know that the residents on Kincaid are actually, the Block Watch group doesn't want the connection. And what we're proposing is to put in a right-of-way, and these are the red lines here, so that maybe that connection's not desired right now, but maybe in 50 years it will be. And in 50 years, if we don't put a dedication there now, you won't be able to get one from the owners of this development for that strata. So we'd like to put that in there now, more of something that could happen in the future when things change, and it's not hurting anybody. We're not forcing anyone to walk there. There'll be no walkway, but there'll be the allowance to do that in the future. And then finally, we started with, another part of this is sound attenuation. We heard last time about, how is sound going to be dealt with. Ian mentioned about a sound attenuation wall that comes along this edge here to buffer these residents from any vehicle noise in here. And I just want to explain that the grade here is actually coming up, but on our drive-in, it's actually staying fairly level. So what we end up with is a 2.4 meter high wall, a concrete sound barrier wall here, and then we terrace the landscape down, so it ends up that it's about 4 meters in total elevation. So any vehicles down in this edge are actually going to be about 4 meters below grade. So actually quite a ways down, which is a huge attenuation, a huge potential for reducing noise. I think one of the other areas was this property over here. I know was concerned about the noise of these trucks. And what we've done with that is there's going to be a fence, 6-foot fence along this property line. But even just the house itself being between the source of the noise and them, we basically shut that noise down. It'll effectively act as a wall, a noise barrier wall. And again, the use of vegetation, evergreen vegetation on that edge, again, muffles that sound. So we're trying to, not just one level, but a couple of levels of means to reduce sound in those areas. And lastly was Gabble Creek. We started off with Gabble Creek. It's all about Gabble Creek. But I just wanted to mention again that we're in a small section of Gabble here. We're going to be removing invasive species, planting some native willows and Douglas fir trees, and maintaining that for a period of 3 years to establishment. In this area, at the corner here, This is actually part of, this is the old road edge here. The road is bending a bit more. So in those areas where the road's being removed, we're planting again more native plants and some native trees there as well. So, you know, the Colquitts was a significant driver in the whole process, and it's been something that's been worked out with the architect, with the civil engineers, and with us as well, and it's definitely a significant part of the design. These were just a couple of sections just to show, it's mostly this section I was interested in here, is to show that people that were in this condo, this section here is sort of a slice through the development right here, so there's the processing facility, and this is the condo, our townhouse right here. Processing facility, townhouse here. You can just see that you know, we've got quite a buffer. We've sunk the building in the back of the grade, so it's more of the wall is hidden. It's not like it's as massive a wall. And then the use of evergreen plant material, shrubs and trees to screen that building. And then just some images of the types of landscape we're talking about. In these various areas with the community garden, rainwater landscapes on street edges, rainwater landscapes is sort of more larger facilities that become focal points in the landscape. And you can, this is the same picture, this one and this one. This is winter, summer, so lots of diversity in how this looks in the winter time. It looks beautiful in the winter as well as in the summer. And I'll pass it over to Peter.
Thanks, Scott. I'm Peter DeHoga. I'm with DeHoga and Growth Architects, and I'm just going to make a few supplementary comments to the report that you have, just to expand again on some of the stuff that we presented the last time we were here. And I think this particular slide, I'm only just showing it because you know exactly what's going on, but there was a question about density, and just to clarify the density for those of you who you know, for whom this has value, we are providing 33 units in the townhouse development, which works out to 21.37 units per hectare. And I think that's how the density gets measured. And on the Bearland strata, where we have 9 units, that works out to 18.43 units. And really, those are the two numbers I think that make the most sense. There have been a number of other numbers where they took the whole site and kind of decided, well, what would that be? But really, those are the two numbers. And that compares to standard RT2 zone, where 38 units are permitted per hectare. So we're well under the RT2 standard. And RT2 is kind of the low end of the standard. It does go up from there to well over 50. So I think really that just goes to the point that we're not really dense by comparison to the multifamily attached housing zones. And also we are significantly over on our, well, when we say over, we have a fairly large open space area of 25%, and that's quite a bit larger than is required for most of these attached housing zones. So clearly having the lower density of units is what begins to account for that higher open site space. In the site section, and we spoke about this when we did the presentation last time, I'm going to just get into a little bit more detail on it. These were essentially drawn to just show the scale of the residential buildings in relationship to the neighboring streets and houses. The top one goes from Dieppe on the right side and south, and the lower one starts at Douglas, goes through the commercial building and ends up at Kincaid. And really just to show that these were not overwhelming in sense of the scale of the buildings, but what we didn't really do was talk about kind of what the real heights of these things were, other than to say that you know, we had a variance that was in the order of about 11 meters for building height. And I'm going to use Scott's little plan here because it's quite a nice one. I'm going to focus on a slightly different part of it than he did. And it's to just sort of point out that there's this kind of light line that kind of runs down underneath here, which is quite different from this top line, which is really our finished grade. And it goes to show how the building sort of sets, you know, into this new grade that we're creating, but also well down into some of the existing grades that we've established, or that are there now. And so this really begins to show kind of where this calculation comes from. And if I look at that in a little bit more detail, we can kind of see what these numbers are. This is the central walkway with the rain garden, the trail, and it shows how the site steps up to our landscape terraces on either side, which come off of the kitchens of the units. So these are sort of the barbecue terraces, if you will. You can see that the height is measured to the midpoint of the roof, and that, you know, from our standard sort of terrace level, we're at about 7.6 meters, which is a pretty acceptable height for residential. It goes down a little bit when we get to the street side, because we do have our garages, which go down kind of a half a floor down into the garage level on both sides. And this is the area where we get this variance for height. I mean, it's when we've got these grade situations, and the worst case, this particular height from this mid-roof point to this average grade line is 11 meters. In every instance, the houses, or the townhouses, are always only ever going to be in this 8.5 to 9 meter range. And we can see that here when we show the streetscapes, that the exposure is always sort of the same. We can see the garages are sort of half buried from the side.